He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, this is The Alex Marlow Show. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate all of you telling 10,000 friends and family members about what we're doing, subscribing, leaving all those reviews. All that's very helpful. I feel a little growth happening, which is good. And a lot to do. It's going to be a busy week. Got some good guests lined up for you. But today, just the news, because there's a ton of it. Massively busy news weekend. And we'll start with regime change in Syria, one that not a lot of people saw coming. I was trying to figure out which entities, which countries had intelligence that actually suggested this was about to happen. And it feels like Turkey knew about it, but we really don't know. And there's a lot more questions, I would say, that are unanswered than things that are answered. But I conferred with Frances Martel, our world editor, today, and I did an interview with her at our Breitbart Confidential show that we do for the Breitbart Fight Club. That's our premium membership over at Breitbart.com. And every day I do a deep dive with one of our reporters or editors who is an expert on a subject area. And I spoke with her today, so she helped me come up with this crib sheet for all of you. But I'll tell you, here's what we know so far. So there are about 10 or so groups in Syria. So it's a very chaotic region, very hard to understand. And the Bashar al-Assad regime he's been in charge of the country for a couple of decades, and his dad preceded him. So it's really been about a half a century of rule from the Assads. And now we feel like he's probably fled to Russia, though initial media reports were that maybe his plane got shut down, maybe he was dead. But of the 10 regions or 10 groups, the main tension has been between the Assad regime and the Sunni population in Syria. And there were protests that had begun against Assad again. But in the past, he would crush them, and then civil war would ensue, but then he'd be able to crush the regime. The people who were standing up to him. There's a third group that's very significant here, the Kurds. The Kurds are involved, again, but they want a separate Kurdistan. So they're essentially separatists, and they share some alliances with both sides, the rebel group, these Sunnis, as well as the Syrian Assad regime. And then also they have a lot in common with the U.S. because they helped us defeat ISIS. And so since ISIS's caliphate was destroyed by Trump, the region's been kind of quiet, and Assad was content to ignore the Kurds. But Turkey has a Sunni Islamist government, and they were allied with this Sunni jihadi militia that was the main source of rebellion against Assad. They were mostly focused on the Kurds because they think a Kurdistan would be an existential threat to them. And so Turkey wants the Kurds wiped out. And that's essentially the geopolitical landscape in a nutshell. So Erdogan thinks the Kurds are a threat, the president of Turkey. After the fall of ISIS, things have been sort of dormant. And Assad is heavily invested in Russia, and Russia and China are invested in Assad. Russia in particular, this is the key to them having any geopolitical access to the Mediterranean, to the Middle East. They basically have no other they have no other access to this region. They don't have any other close alliances. And so it's really important for Russia to have this alliance with Syria for their geopolitical ambitions. And there's no real replacement for them. So what's ended up happening over time is that it's become trendy in the United States to support Assad if you're a Democrat. You saw Hillary Clinton would call Assad a reformer. Tulsi Gabbard famously went over and met with Assad. John Kerry did, Nancy Pelosi, less famous, but they did. They went over there and they met with him. And you see some of what he does is he's a master propagandist. You see the way he dresses. First of all, he's an eye doctor, which is kind of wild. And he also dresses like he's a Western guy. The way Francis summed it up is he basically looks like any guy on the street in Miami. And that's part of it, is to convince the West that he's a safe pair of hands. And he's a safer set of hands than this Sunni jihadist movement that would take over the country if he wasn't there. But of course, you know, there's evidence that he gassed his own people, and he's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. But he was pretty convincing that he might be the best of all the bad options. But this is one where I just want to make this point. And this is a huge point. It's the biggest point we can see because we don't know how this thing is going to play out going forward. But this is not a a good one where you want to be on one side or the other and feel like you have to commit to being on one side. That's not what this is about. There are only bad players in this that have a chance of winning out. And so don't feel like you've got this thing nailed, and one where you really got to take a more of a wait and see approach. But now, as of this weekend, essentially Al-Qaeda affiliates are taking over, and they're representing themselves as respectable. They're going to the media saying they want a peaceful and organized transition. They don't want any more mass bloodshed. And how all this came about, there's clearly some backroom deals, but in terms of, we don't think Israeli intelligence saw this coming. Who knows what Joe Biden saw coming? More on that in a second. But this is a big deal. And we've learned thus far that there's certainly unanswered questions. It's certainly a curiosity how this was able to take place. And it feels like, with considering that Assad's got the armed forces, how did he get overwhelmed so quickly? But then you start reading between the lines, you start learning things like he wasn't paying the military and the jets didn't have fuel in them. So all of a sudden it starts making sense that maybe the military wasn't going to have his back, and maybe it was time for things to change. But the successor in the region as of now is a Sunni jihadist group with a leader who's Al-Qaeda connected. He's got a lot of aliases, so it's kind of even silly to bring up his name. But there's a bounty on his head from the United States. So we think this guy's a terrorist and we're supposed to take him out. But we're also seeing basically Biden applauding that this took place. He's actually taking credit for it. So an interesting wrinkle. Biden is trying to take credit, even though he now owns what's going to happen next, and we don't know what's going to happen next. One of the questions I asked Francis is that there's a lot of Christians in the region. These Christians are vulnerable. And a lot of the question that I asked her is it more or less likely that there's going to be some sort of a genocide against Christians? And she said more. So if you're rooting against genocides for Christians, you're not thrilled about this outcome. Not to say Assad's a good guy, not to say I like Assad, not to say that a best case scenario isn't preferable somehow. Maybe it is. I don't know. But we're certainly putting that into the picture, which was not there before. So whoever's the successor, things are likely to get a lot worse before they get better. So why did Joe Biden want this, and was he involved? We don't really know the extent of his involvement. There's no evidence we were involved as of yet, but he's certainly acting like we were, and it's quite possible. But this is something that was on Barack Obama's to-do list. Obama wanted regime change in Syria, and he never could get it done. Hillary wanted it could never get done. So now this is happening. And so Biden's running out and he's taking credit as if he's something to do with it. It's noteworthy because this is where we don't really have a leadership role in the world now under Biden's regime. He's mostly reacting, but this happens, and now he's taking credit as if he's some sort of a leader in this, and there's no evidence that he is. So now we got an Al-Qaeda affiliate running Syria. Assad's gone. Who knows if he'll ever come back? And it's time to start playing with the concept of how this changes geopolitics. One thing that also probably helped bring this about was that a lot of major players in the region have been weakened since October the 7th, where Israel has just has taken out so many threats to them, including Hezbollah. The fact that they've so been weakened is a huge reason why a lot of this regime change, I think, is possible. There's a lot of softening of the belly that's been done. We're always keeping an eye on China, who was forging an alliance with Assad. I don't think it was as deep as Russia's, but we're trying to make nice with Assad. And they've been very quiet. So as of the time we're recording this, not really hearing much from China about what they think one way or the other. But what I really find to be the most interesting is you got Al-Qaeda in charge, basically, and they're acting like they're the normal people, which is, of course, implausible. And so we got to watch out for that propaganda. Russia, who this is kind of devastating for them. Assad blew it for them. So let's see how they react in general. And then you've got Turkey, major player here. They're a NATO ally who are allied with jihadists who wanted this regime change to take place. So NATO always making life more difficult. It is not making things easier for us. They never do. So that's where we are right now, and that's an issue, and we'll bring it up moment to moment at Breitbart News. I'll try to keep updates relatively tight on the show because it gets a little wonky, and it really does take some time. But I recommend that deep dive with Francis if you go over the Breitbart Fight Club. And all of our stories we have the quickest and the best coverage. No one in conservative media hangs with us when it comes to world news. There's just no one close. We're by far the best. But it is it'll be interesting to see because I've got my eye on these Christian groups. Lebanese Christian groups are rejoicing. They're freed after decades of in Assad's prisons. That's good news. But could the genocide be next? We're keeping an eye on that. All right. A lot of news breaking as we're recording today. A person of interest in Brian Thompson's death arrested on gun charges. Still over the weekend, we saw some more left-wingers trying to rejoice in the violence, trying to rejoice in the murder. Very noteworthy how they think Daniel Penny should have been convicted when he did not murder Jordan Neely. It's clear he didn't. Neely drugs in his system, and there's no evidence the chokehold is actually what killed him. And that was inexcusable. He's guilty. But this guy who murders a CEO in cold blood, he's an innocent because you don't like the healthcare industry or the health insurance industry. Very interesting. But this is brand new, fresh as we're recording. A person taken in for questioning in Altoona, Pennsylvania. And this is a person named Luigi Mangione. New York Police Department Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said at a press conference, 26 years old, he's on firearm charges, and he's a person of interest in the targeted murder. ABC News reports he was traveling through Altoona on a Greyhound. He'd walked into McDonald's to eat. Hey, very health conscious guy. He had a ghost gun. It's one of these guns where they make it so that it's tough to trace where you got it from. Fake IDs, including one the New York Police Department believed was used by the suspect in New York. Interesting. Don't know much about him. We probably will know more when the show comes out. And as always, Breitbart.com for the latest. Daniel Penny, unbelievable stuff. He was found not guilty in New York City's chokehold death. I'm shocked. Did you guys see the sketches of the jurors and one of them had a mask on? When we saw the juror with the mask on, I thought, oh, he's getting convicted for sure. Maybe a hung jury at best. But clearly this was a political persecution. Alvin Bragg, the DA, targeting Penny, no doubt, because Penny's white and Jordan Neely, the man who died, is black. Penny, a veteran, Marine veteran. Neely was a criminal and a lunatic and on drugs. So, and in the left's America, the criminal lunatic on drugs, if they happen to have darker skin than whoever is the alleged attacker, they're correct. The judge had dismissed second-degree manslaughter charges on Friday, and the jurors struggled to come to a unanimous decision on other charges, and they found him not guilty as of now. I can't believe it. I'm shocked. The prosecutors obviously did not have a strong case here, and were trying to rely on wokeism to get him convicted. So very exciting. He faced at least 15 years in prison on manslaughter, 4 years for negligent homicide, and no minimum. There was no minimum sentence. Man, interesting. I'm happy about this. This is great news, and I'm kind of stunned. I'm stunned that this is happening in our country, where maybe there is finally some blowback to the wokeness. People are understanding that the wokeness is not going to work. We're sick of it. It's not making America happier. It's not making us safer. I'll tell you someone who doesn't get it. This is Barack Obama. He gave a speech over the weekend, and I want to play. Look at how bubbled Obama's gotten. Check this clip out.
The election proved that democracy is pretty far down on people's priority list. Pluralism is not about holding hands and singing Kumbaya. It is not about abandoning your convictions. It is about recognizing that in a democracy, power comes from forging alliances and building coalitions and making room in those coalitions, not only for the woke, but also for the waking.
Okay, I'm going to break this down. Play this one more time, and I'm going to break. There are two key moments.
The election proved that democracy is pretty far down on people's priority
One thing
list.
about this guy that really is unbelievable is how he's so condescending, saying democracy's that far down our priority list. Well, perhaps we don't actually think that the Democrats are great stewards of democracy, Mr. Obama. They rigged the primary so that Joe Biden ran uncontested, and then they kicked him out, and they put Kamala Harris in, who we didn't like and never got a vote for president, and they installed her as the nominee. And then they tried to run this honeymoon strategy where they act like she's so great and she's got so much joy and such great vibes that she should just be the president, even though she never earned it, and the voters don't like her. So that's not being good stewards of democracy. I'm working on a big research project right now that I'm just dying to share with the audience because it's taking up a lot of my time. And but I'm going to hold back on it because I want to hold back a little bit. But part of it, I'm playing with this concept that the Democrats hate democracy. I think I'm onto something here, and the evidence backs it up, and I've got a mountain of it. So I will be laying all that out as time goes on. But those few ones off the top of my head, those are pretty good examples. And I think a lot of the public understands this. Not everyone thinks that January the 6th was the only time democracy came under threat. And a lot of people saw January the 6th as mostly peaceful, and then a bunch of mostly peaceful protesters got overcharged by an overzealous legal system led by Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, who Barack Obama wanted to put in the Supreme Court. A bad guy and a dumb guy. All right, check out the end of this clip from Obama. Check this out.
Forging alliances and building coalitions and making room in those coalitions, not only for the woke, but also for the waking.
Not only for the woke, but also for the waking. Is he unironically using the word woke? That is pretty unbelievable that he's doing that. Woke has become a joke. We took it over, just like how we took over the term fake news. We took that term and it's our term now. We get to use it to make fun of you. So the woke and the waking, meaning like the woke are the superior, but there's also people who are still waking up to what? It's very odd. This is at the Obama Foundation. Ooh, a democracy forum. I know it's also triggering to the audience. We don't even live in a democracy. It's a republic. Representative government. It's not a pure democracy. All right. Well, the world is moving on, and they all see that Donald Trump is really the president. There was just sensational imagery coming out of Trump's attendance of the opening of the Notre Dame Cathedral after the devastating fires that took place. And he was there with other world leaders, and it's clear that they see him as the guy. I've got some footage. Those of you who are not watching, I'll try to describe some of this because I know that audio is still the preferred way to get these shows, but doing very well on YouTube and Rumble. I appreciate all of you who watch them. We do put a lot of effort into making sure the visuals are really good. But let me play some of this footage for all of you. I don't have a ton of commentary to add. He just is shaking hands with lots of world leaders. Even Zelensky's there. He had a jacket on. Wouldn't do a suit, though. There's Prince William. He's there. Seems happy to see President Trump. Why wouldn't he be? Trump's wearing a yellow tie. I like the yellow tie. Looks good. Everyone's happy to see him. It's just a lot of respect. The point is that everyone's very happy to see him. He's looking very presidential. A lot of great images of Jill Biden smiling at Trump and Trump using it to sell fragrances. You guys caught this, right? Online, the most unbelievable thing. Trump's got a fragrance. And look, when you're a lame duck and you are never going to have to run again and you've got a mandate and everyone thinks you're the funniest guy, then you can do that stuff. You can sell fragrances. And he's using Jill Biden looking at him in a warm way as the advertisement for the Trump fragrance. So cool stuff over there. Glad Trump did this. And it's just really interesting to see the world just understand that he's the guy. He's the man already. And Joe Biden can take credit for regime change in Syria all he wants, but it doesn't make a difference. Trump is coming in, and he's coming in with a head of steam. He did an interview with Kristen Welker, one of the worst people in journalism, on Meet the Press. I hate that he's doing this. I really do. And I don't want him to do these interviews anymore. But he can do whatever he wants. So, and they usually work out for him now. I'm not going to deny that. I just think that there's enough of an audience out there that he can generate himself, and he doesn't need these people. He can speak to conservative media, even the podcast media, the more neutral media. But he did meet the press. I guess it's tempting to do that. Look, he grew up on this stuff. He spent his whole adult life where people cared about Meet the Press. And we did get some good clips out of it. We get the good clips. So first thing, he gets grilled on vaccines because they're going to try to take out Robert Kennedy because he doesn't want vaccines mandated everywhere all the time for schools and stuff, which it's really over the top what we do. And I'm by and large pro-vaccine. I'm not pro getting endless mandatory COVID boosters. Let's be clear on that. We're having the military. You have to get boosters to serve in the military, or you have to get COVID boosters to play in the NBA. I'm against all that. But overall, vaccines have done a lot of good. And but still, the fact that so many of them are mandated or you can't do anything. I mean, that is light fascism, right? And we still have that in a lot of corners of our country. So Trump's taking that on. Let's play some of this.
Let me ask you about RFK Jr. He has obviously talked about his skepticism of vaccines. He's expressed opposition to childhood vaccines. Do you want to see childhood vaccines eliminated?
If they're dangerous for the children. Look.
So possibly?
When you look at some of the problems, when you look at what's going on with disease and sickness in our country, something's wrong.
Are you talking about autism?
Well, if you take a look at autism, you go back 25 years, autism was almost non-existent. It was, 1 out of 100,000. And now it's close to 1 out of 100.
Well,
I mean, what's happening?
So this is the exact right way to frame it. And this is why he's so good, is that he's not saying that the vaccines are causing autism. He's saying that we had an uptick in vaccines at the same time we had an uptick in autism. So can we get an explanation? So maybe there is an explanation. But where is the deep investigation? Where's the evidence? How come there's not a scientific approach to this? And that's what I like about Robert Kennedy is he seems committed to using the scientific method. He actually, I think, wants to prove stuff. And if he can't prove it, he'll probably say, I'm taking this approach, but, the evidence is shoddy to this point. I think he's going to come clean with us in that regard. And that's one thing that really appeals to me about him. And Trump is 100% correct on this, is that we have to be able to ask these questions because people have these questions. Normal Americans wonder about this stuff. Is it the water supply? Is it the food supply? What is causing the change? The microplastics? I don't know. We're on a bunch of bogus supplements. We all got all this strange disease that was manufactured in a lab in Wuhan, China, that's probably altered our body chemistry. But can we start trying to sort it out? Or do we have to act like anyone who raises a question is a conspiracy nut? Those days are over now.
If they can find it. Now, I did something the other night that was a little unusual. At Mar-a-Lago, I called the drug companies, the top drug companies, and I called RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz and some of his people. And I said, let's all get together and let's figure out where we're going. Because we're going to do a lot of things. Number one, we're going to reduce prices because the middleman makes more money than the drug companies, in all fairness to the drug companies. There's a middleman that nobody even knows who they are. And you look at our drug prices, they're much higher than the prices for the same medicine, for the same stuff. So we met, and we met for a long time, and we talked about pricing, and we talked about vaccines, in terms of what happens. We talked about pesticides. We talked about everything. Yes. And I think a lot of good things are going to come from him.
Yeah, it's awesome. I don't interrupt it because it's exactly the right approach. Let's get everyone together. Let's start talking through what the problems are and not worry about special interest and not worry about who's cutting the biggest checks and not worry about which voter blocks that Obama's talking about, which part of the woke or waking coalitions you're going to be alienating. This is where we can make some real progress here, where we can actually start trying to give the public answers to some of the problems that ail us. Can we have a genuine curiosity? I thought Obama was supposed to fix the drug prices issue. He hasn't. So maybe Trump's got an approach. And he knows when he's getting the drug companies on the phone, he knows what good they do. They save countless lives. Modern Western medicine has saved more lives than maybe any force in the world, maybe the American military, but it's a huge level of good that's been done. But there's some bad stuff. And the salesmen are very aggressive. And they push mediocre stuff on us and it's too tough. They push it too hard. The COVID vaccine being the most obvious recent example. So we need a reset. It doesn't mean we don't have modern medicine or vaccines or drugs, but feels like there's a lot of people who were oversold stuff and got addicted to stuff, and we're not being sufficiently curious about the problems. This is not a radical idea. This is a normal idea. We got some more on this.
And he's not going to upset any system. He's not going to upset this. He's not looking to, to reinvent the wheel totally. But when you look at the numbers, we really don't have a very healthy country.
Well, sir, going back 25 years,
Yes.
Studies show that there is no link between vaccines and autism. And yet it sounds like you are open to the possibility of him looking
I'm
at
open to
getting
anything.
rid of them.
I think somebody has to find out. If you go back 25 years ago, you had very little autism. Now you have it. I mean,
Well, they say because they're better at identifying it.
1 in 100,000, and now it's 1 in 100. That's a pretty bad number.
Childhood vaccines.
I mean,
have
something is going on. I don't know if it's vaccines. Maybe it's chlorine in the water, right? People are looking at a lot of different things.
Childhood
I
vaccines.
want them to look at everything.
Everything. So childhood vaccines have prevented about.
Missy, I think I'm going to take the rest of the show off because it's exactly my take. My official prediction is it's not the vaccines. But why can't we ask? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's all the stuff we're putting in the food, all the processed food. Maybe it's pesticides. Maybe it's water supply. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the vaccines. But what I do know, and I certainly haven't seen a study that shows it's the vaccines, but it's time to ask because the numbers are too stark and we need to start asking these questions. And we know we get lied to by the drug companies who lied to us up and down throughout the coronavirus. And now there's going to be some hell to pay. Completely reasonable. Everything is reasonable. And she just wants to dunk on him. She's not really curious. She doesn't want to help people. Kristen Welker doesn't want to help people. She's not trying to help. She's trying to ask questions that will get her a golf clap when she heads back to the Meet the Press newsroom when she's done with the interview.
4 million deaths around the world every year.
I think that's
sir.
great.
Isn't that...
I'm all for it. I think it's great. Hey, look, I'm not against vaccines. The polio vaccine is the greatest thing. If somebody told me get rid of the polio vaccine, they're going to have to work real hard to convince me. I think certain vaccines are incredible. But maybe
Good.
some aren't. And
He's
if
so
they
good.
aren't, we have to find out.
He's
when
so
you
good.
talk about autism,
He's so
because it was
good.
brought up, and
He's
you
my
look at
man. All right. That's good. We got more. He's talking about January 6 pardons. Let's see this.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual
Everyone.
cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking
You're
first
going to issue
day.
these pardons.
Love it.
These people
Love
have
it.
been there, how long is it, 3 or 4 years?
Okay.
By the way, they've been in there for years. And they're in a filthy, disgusting place
Yes.
that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
Oh, man. They're being mistreated in the prisons. They shouldn't even be there to begin with. 1,000 or so people, I think, were charged. Hundreds have been locked up. Completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Our system of justice is completely broken. And the J6 cases are a perfect example. Look, if you committed some act of violence or vandalism, then you're going to have to do some time. It's probably already served it for the most part. But the vast majority of people got wrapped up in this dragnet. And that's what it was about making examples of people for political purpose to string out that news cycle so they could use it to run and try to win the presidency in 2024, and they failed. I got one more from this interview.
You about some of your other promises on this topic. You've promised to end birthright citizenship on day one. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, absolutely.
The 14th Amendment, though, says that, quote, all persons born in the United States are citizens. Can you get around the 14th Amendment with an executive
we're going to have
action?
to get a change. We'll maybe have to go back to the people, but we have to end it. We're the only country that has it.
Through an executive action?
We're the only country that has it. If somebody sets a foot, just a foot, 1 foot, you don't need two, on our land, congratulations, you are now a citizen of the United States of America. Yes, we're going to end that because it's ridiculous.
Through executive action?
Well, if we can, through executive action. I was going to do it through executive action, but then we had to fix COVID first, to be honest with you. We have to end it.
Yeah, we absolutely have to end birthright citizenship. It's not real. It doesn't exist. Birthright citizenship is fake. because there are many circumstances where you can be in the country and you can give birth, and that does not make the person an American citizen. So we're making a list at Breitbart News. Ken Klukowski, our top legal editor, is making it. I'll bring this to the show. This will come back up, and I will read them to you. I don't need to wing it now. You can go to Breitbart.com, or I'll bring it up on the show down the road. But there are many instances where you can be here and you don't just get citizenship. So it's an absurd premise. Who would ever want this premise? Where the location of the woman's body at the time of delivery means you're an American for life. It doesn't make any sense. No country would have it. This is a hoax that was perpetrated by the Democrats in order to get more undocumented Democrats into the country. So it is nothing to do with being an American, is the location of the body. It is a big hoax. It's a big hoax. It just should not be the case. So good for Trump to go after it. We got to stop it. I don't know how. I'll ask Ken about this. I'll bring this back to the show. What exactly would be the process for reversing birthright citizenship? Because we've assumed this is the law of the land. But for you to come in the country and enter it illegally while pregnant and then give birth and that child is an American, what is the rationale for that? It just encourages lawlessness into our country. The rationale, of course, is political. All right. A few other things that I want to bring up that are popping in the news. Senator Cotton has said that he believes all of Trump's nominees will get confirmed. I had an important message that I relayed on the show from Friday about how we need to have everyone come up for a vote. Everything needs to come up for a vote. And if Republicans are forced to get on record, I do think Trump gets everyone through, because it's going to create a massive headache for anyone in the Rhino Caucus to vote against any of Trump's nominees. And I think this is a really big point. So if we are committed to, you go through the process, you go through the hearings, everyone can go and kiss the ring, go to all the Senate offices and answer tough questions. But assuming something crazy doesn't happen during the confirmation where someone's revealed to be a murderer or a serial rapist or something, then they need to get confirmed, because Trump should get the cabinet that he wants. And these are all swamp drainers. These are all people who are threats to the bureaucracy. So I'm glad to hear Cotton say that. We've got our eye on a few senators here at Breitbart and on the Alex Marlow Show. But happy to hear it. Very pleased with that development. Let's see. John Nolte writes for Breitbart News, CNN and Jake Tapper lose a crucial motion in a massive defamation case. I love this. Navy veteran Zachary Young, Nolte writes, has won a number of crucial trial motions in his defamation case against far-left CNN and Jake Tapper. This has been going on since 2021. And during Biden's disastrous evacuation of Afghanistan, where the fake news was looking to try to turn anyone not named Joe Biden into a villain, Tapper told his viewers Afghans trying to get out of the country face a black market full of promises, demands, exorbitant fees, no guarantees of safety and success. And he turned in the segment saying desperate to a guy named Alex Marquardt, who said that desperate Afghans are being exploited and they're by those offering evacuation services for exorbitant and impossible costs. And they showed a picture of this guy, Zachary Young, as an example, apparently in CNN, of someone who's trying to exploit Afghanis who are trying to flee the country after Biden botched the Afghanistan withdrawal. So Marquardt then said something called Nemix Enterprises was charging $75,000 for a vehicle transport from Kabul to Pakistan, $14,500 for flights to the UAE. And Tapper tried to take it back 4 months later. So there's no correction for 4 months. Then finally, he made non-air correction, a sniveling thing. I don't need to read the whole thing. It takes too much time. But this thing is proceeding and good. Anything that makes the establishment media's lives more difficult makes me happy. All right, I brought up on the show a couple of weeks back this actor named Zachary Levi, who he's been in a bunch of stuff in Hollywood. You've seen him in stuff. I think maybe his biggest movie was Shazam, which is the sort of jokey superhero movie. But he's been in some other stuff as well. He's in the show Chuck. That was a very popular show. And he's a guy who's kind of come out more as a open Trump supporting conservative recently. As I mentioned this last time, that I've seen him around in LA. I think we got some mutual friends. And I always got the impression he was on the right, but it wasn't really out about it. It was sort of more the libertarian wishy-washy stuff. And now he's out there and he's just riding hard for Trump. Trump signed it. We wrote up a nice piece about him at Breitbart, and Trump signed it, as Trump is known to do. Natalie Hart prints it out for Trump, and then Trump signs it. So, and then he was holding it up on his social. It was very cool. So he's out there in a big way. And he originally was a Bobby Kennedy guy, and then now he's fully on the Trump train. And he's on Bill Maher's show, and he was saying some pretty interesting stuff. He was saying that the Democrats were election deniers for the 2016 election, which is true. They denied that Trump was legit. They thought Vladimir Putin won the election for Trump. And then he was also saying that he's not lost Hollywood jobs after his Trump support. This is a very interesting message to conservatives, because something that's very trendy out here in Los Angeles is conservatives act like if you are an out-and-out conservative Trump supporter, you can't work. And I just don't think this is true. I think that the talented people who are on the right continue to work. I mean, the best example is, John Voight. John Voight's in a lot of stuff because he's really good. And it's someone who's been an open public conservative, fearless conservative, and he still works. He works a lot. And there's a lot of other people like that who are open conservatives who still get work, and they get work because they're very good. Now, am I saying that all else being equal, if you got a guy who's got a MAGA hat on his profile and he's equally talented, equally good looking, equally experienced as someone else who's up for a job, do I think they'll go with the MAGA hat guy? Probably not. No. But I do think that the message is that we need to boldly create art. If you're inclined to be an artist, if you're inclined to be an actor, it's a hard thing to do. But if you must do it, I don't recommend it for people who don't have a strong stomach. It's tough road to hoe if you want to be an actor, you want to make it in Hollywood, you want to make it entertainment. But I love that he said this, that he's not lost Hollywood jobs after Trump support, because I think that the cream rises to the top. And I think that this industry, the entertainment industry, they have so much competition now with the TikToks of the world, the social media revolution that's taking place, where Twitch streamers are getting way more views, YouTube shows getting way more views than Hollywood shows. I mean, contemporary movies, no one's going to see so many of them. Most movies that come out just come and go. That Hollywood is compelled to be open-minded. And I think you can force your way through with sheer force if you are hardworking enough, talented enough, good-looking enough. So I think it's very cool message, and I really like it. And a little contrarian for a conservative to say that, and in a good way. Speaking of Hollywood, this, I can't miss this one. Actress Laura Benatti shrieks "F you forever" at former co-star Zachary Levi. She was on a show with him on a Broadway Tony Award-winning musical called She Loves Me, screaming at him. I'm not familiar with this person. Is she good looking? She probably is. I don't know. I feel like there's something that happens where people just, good looking women who everyone tells them they're great, then, sometimes it's shocking to them when they get disagreed with sometimes. Is that a thing? I think it's a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. But that seems like a phenomenon. F you forever. That's mature. They're not charming. They are not charming people on the left. Nothing less charming than what's going on with Diddy. Diddy with his bottles of baby oil and serial sexual abuse that appears to be covered up by all of Hollywood for a very long time. A lawsuits claim that his buddy Jay-Z raped a 13-year-old girl with Diddy. So Diddy and Jay-Z raping a girl. They've denied the allegations as a blackmail attempt, but here's the problem. I don't think the accuser asked for money. That doesn't make the blackmail attempt story look very good. Makes it look kind of suspicious. So I'll tell you where I am at here to start. Anyone who had a sexual abuse and did not come forward during the Me Too movement, where everyone was coming forward. You've got, Terry Crews, someone grabs his junk at a party And he's testifying before Congress about the horrors of Me Too. Look it up. That really happened. So once that happened, it was like, okay, so everyone's clearing the air now. So if this happened before that, and then you didn't say anything during Me Too, I'm inclined not to believe you. But that blackmail detail is very interesting. Of course, Jay-Z, mega fundraiser for Democrats with Beyonce, his wife, who he started dating, I think, when she was a minor. I think that's pretty well known. So, noteworthy, very noteworthy that this is happening. There could be a real comeuppance in Hollywood. It'd be great to see a new guard come in, just disgusting people out there. Not to say we've got the hard proof yet on this one, but just the extent of the Diddy cover-up, which is clear that all these the freak fests, literally what they were called, completely covered up by a whole industry because they didn't want to touch Diddy. Like, he's so great. A big cultural reset is happening, and it's going to change everything for the better if we can continue it. All right. Last one for today, Adam Schiff, that little pencil neck. He's going to take office on Monday, which is today as we're recording this, not in January. So this is a power move to allegedly help out California, but it's really to help out pencil neck. But basically, Senator LaFonza Butler. Okay, how many of you in the audience knew that there was a woman named LaFonza Butler who was a senator from California? She was appointed. When was she appointed for the Feinstein seat? Yeah, she after Dianne Feinstein died last year. So she'd been appointed. I have no idea who she is. Lived in California for 30 years of my life. But she's apparently an LGBTQ, IA plus, 2-spirit, 3-spirit, 4-spirit, and a black woman. And that little pencil neck, straight white male kicking her out. Why? Because down the road, this will give him a slight level of seniority over other freshman Democrats. So that's the power move here. Is that he'll be a little more senior than any Democrat that got elected in 2024 because he'll be seated earlier. So this means he's going to kick out an LGBTQ plus 4-spirit African-American, also known as black, senator in order to get just a little bit of an edge. And Newsom is apparently behind the move. These people, it's just more evidence at how much they played it for keeps. The Democrats are truly, truly political at every turn. And they're willing to go to extreme levels to just get any little political edge. I note this because they play the game and they play it to win. And even if that means being hypocrites, even if that means it's just such a dirtbag move. And I note this not to point out that Pencil Neck's a dirtbag and Newsom's a dirtbag. You guys all knew this if you're listening to the show, if you're watching this show. But just their willingness to engage in dirtbag behavior, even to snub their own allies, to get a little bit of an edge, they don't care. And they will fearlessly do this stuff. He's going to cut in line in front of a LGBT whatever BIPOC woman, which I was told you can't do that. For a slight edge. Interesting. Okay. A lot of email coming in, aloha@alexmarlow.com. I absolutely love it. I love reading them. I wish I could get to more than I'm going to have time for today. I'm going to read one from John Farnham. He's gotten on before, but he wrote such a long, thoughtful interview about my long conversation with Mike Cernovich that was released on Thursday. Dear Alex, I did not expect your interview with Mike Cernovich to stand out. I don't know why I assumed it would be run-of-the-mill, but I was completely wrong. The interview was amazing. It was like we got to speak behind the curtain and see the inner workings of conservative thought leaders, real inside baseball. You covered a lot of ground, and I think I will have to re-listen to it because there are so many good trains of thought to follow. Thank you. I'll make a couple comments here. I don't want to do run-of-the-mill interviews. I'm not going to do them on the show. I refuse. If I feel like I need to do a run-of-the-mill interview, what I will do is I will call up my friends and experts and I will get their take, and then I will bring it to the show. If I'm just going to do straightforward stuff, I'm just not going to do it. I want to do interesting stuff. I want to do things that are different than any other interview you're going to get. And I'll tell you, Cernovich doesn't want to do run-of-the-mill interviews also, and he consented to being on the show because he knows that I'm not just a fly-by-night guy. I'm an OG. I'm an original MAGA conservative. So I'm going to be able to go deeper than some other people are going to be able to do that. So it is an advantage. So thank you for noticing. He continues. It was part of the Cernovich episode, but you seem to mention almost every day the conservative sexual ethic. I still can't believe that you have to tell people in your audience to stop sleeping around and just get into a happy marriage. I don't give 2 cents to the hypocritical Democrats who attack, e.g. Pete Hegseth for zipper problems, but I agree with you that we really should not have those problems to worry about. That's exactly right. You just create problems for yourself and not getting this a moral sexual ethic ingrained at a younger age. You waste so much time. I'm all about efficiency. I have a lot I want to get done. I have a lot I want to do with my career. I have a lot of children. And I also have leisure activities I like. I like golf. I like movies. I like music. I like cooking. I'm not going to get to that stuff. I'm wasting time. And all the stuff Pete Hegseth is doing right now, it's all wasting time. I like Pete Hegseth. He's done a great job so far in his interviews. I think he'll make a great Department of Defense secretary. But he's caused himself problems, and it's good to note that because we can't avoid those with greater morals. I'm glad you're spreading the message of monogamy, but it's crazy to me that we have come to this point in our lives where a millennial talk show host has to bring this revolutionary message to society. I was born in 78 and people were teaching abstinence when I was young. How do conservatives fail so miserably that monogamy is now a revolutionary new idea? I think a lot of Gen X internalize the conservative lessons that they learned growing up, but then failed to engage with society and perpetuate the message. Good on you for bringing it back. That's totally right. It's weakness. It's weakness. Society is not designed to encourage monogamy anymore. It's designed to encourage more exploration than I needed. I can't speak for everyone, but I didn't need to feel like I had played the field or something. But that's what's being encouraged. Even parents are encouraging their kids to do that. You play the field, and then you can settle down when you're in your 30s and you have 3 eggs left if you're a woman. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you see what I'm saying. I think people should start dating for marriage as young as you have any level of maturity to be able to contemplate such a thing. So it is the goal is to form a strong, coherent nuclear family because that is the launch pad of which so much of the rest of your life's meaning will come from. And it's more fun. I mean, you got to get burned out, right? Just doing this single party life. Not everyone, and not everyone's like that. But it's becoming a real thing because a lot of conservative males online are now going the other direction, that they're sort of anti-woman now, and they think that women should just be baby-making factories. A lot of this, I think, is a big reaction to the woke crowd and just sort of the pendulum swinging back too far. So I'm willing to tolerate some of the discussion. But it is noteworthy that this is a big change in how we're talking about these issues. And I feel like we're at a bit of a crossroads because the young men need some real guidance right now. All right, let me go on. He talks a lot. Then he goes on. It's a more thoughtful letter. He goes on to talk about California conservatives. I have a theory that has been slowly growing in my mind. I used to trash California Republicans, assuming that they're just Democrats light. But you, Mike Slater, who hosts Breitbart News Daily for us, Mike Cernovich and others are starting to believe that the strongest Republicans come from blue state California. We got a great track record. So many of our stars, Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, Larry Elder, Ronald Reagan. There's a lot of strong conservatives come out of California. No doubt about it. All right. He goes on. It's a great letter. I will bring something else. Here's a somewhat counterpoint. This is from Bill Bailey. Dear Alex, I have been lost in the woods for 5 years now. Oh, no, I want to do this one. Where is this? Dang it. All right, here we go. Bill Bailey. Dear Alex, I've been lost in the woods for 5 years now. I listened to Rush through the AM section for many years. I've been wandering through the podcast jungle for many years looking for a voice, a demeanor, if you will, someone who could express the conservative values that we share. I believe I've found that voice in you. Your presentation is excellent. Keep your interviews to a minimum. That's what I wanted. And hold and protect your family. It is your presentation of the facts that your voice that we need to hear. You will find your Rio Linda, and I will be there to hear about it. Sincerely, Bill Bailey. So what's noteworthy about this point is that he doesn't want the long form interviews. I'm going to do both, guys. I'm going to do both. I think this is something that is, I want other people to, I feel like I can pick people's brains in an effective way. And I honed this skill for all the years of radio I've done, all the interviews I've done in print over the years as editor, Breitbart. And I have a lot of experience interacting with big shots. And I say this not to brag. It's actually, I'm saying this to be humble. There's so many people that have formulated my perspective. I don't come to my ideas on my own. I come to them through contemplation, through thought, through reading. And luckily, I've been put in a position at Breitbart where when I call a lot of people who have helped me formulate my thoughts, they will often pick up the phone and they'll talk to me. And they will certainly talk to me in front of a growing and powerful audience. So I'm going to do both, but I do appreciate the sentiment. And I think overall, I think the show most days has got to be me giving you my perspective on what's going on. But I do want to do the big interviews. I do love it. All right. Here's Michael Molnar from Ohio. Alex, love the show. I'm a longtime listener. Very happy to listen to you regularly again. I have some beef with you. I love my quarter zip sweaters. They're a comfortable layer to wear in the winter, and it feels good when I have a stethoscope around my neck in the clinic. However, we both agree the Hawaiian shirt days are the best. Merry Christmas. Guys, the quarter zip. Prince Harry. If it's Prince Harry's signature look, don't we have to reevaluate? Joe Scarborough. If it's Joe Scarborough's signature look, don't we have to reevaluate? These guys are not beacons of fashion. And I'm not saying that you can never wear one. I'm just saying don't wear it in public. You don't wear them out in public. They're just not that good looking. They're not. We've just accepted, we accept these things in society. And I want to see the minutes on the meetings when we decide we're just a quarter zip society now. Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not behind it. All right. There's so much more great email. I want to keep reading it, but I feel like there's a good length of the show, a little longer than usual. It's a lot to get through. We had a big show tomorrow. We got a great guest on, David J. Harris, who is incredibly prolific online and one of the ultimate social media influencers on the right and just really articulate. That's coming up along with some news. It's going to be a busy week here on the Alex Marlow Show, and I'm excited to share all of it with you. Thanks to our producer, Misty, and to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members, liking, subscribing, commenting, all that helps engagements, 5-star reviews. Can't thank you enough. Aloha at alexmarlow.com to correspond with me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.